Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to Chaos Arcade. For those of you that are new, this is going to be a little project we're going to be starting off. It's going to be, what would you say, a little mini podcast. That's going to be a little bit edited,
Yeah.
but we'll try to talk about a lot of different things. Mostly the biggest one it would probably be anime. We'll definitely talk about anime quite a bit here. But hey, Halloween's just around the corner, and we thought it was going to be fun to start off this project with a little bit scary, I guess you would say. We would be talking about mythical creatures. Would you say, or how would you describe them?
Like cryptids, ghosts, spooky things.
So if you guys end up liking it and we seeing people enjoying it, we'll definitely talk a little bit more about it. Right now, we're just seeing where we go with it. We're gonna kind of be talking about how we heard of him, if we've heard any like scary stories, if we've heard people say anything about him. So the three things we'll be talking about today would be the Llorona, the Headless Rider, and the third one I keep forgetting, bro. I'm sorry.
It's just the kind of spooky stuff that's supposed to be out in the woods, in our national parks here in America.
So we'll be talking about those three, and like I said, there's a bunch of different ones we can talk about, but we'll keep it short. We're starting this off. We're still trying to figure out how to do this, but hey, I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's jump into it. So the first one we should talk about would be the Llorona.
My understanding of La Llorona is that, from what I've heard, it's kind of two ways. I've heard a lot of different things, but like the general gist of it is it's some kind of female entity that a long time ago had an incident, I guess we can call it, with her kids at a river, and she lost her kids in that incident, and ever since then she wanders around weeping, looking for her kids, and she will come after little boys and girls that are out past their bedtimes and things of that nature. The way that I always had it described to me was kind of like a boogeyman story, but I would say like more, there's a lot more weight to it than like other kind of cultures boogeymans, because for a lot of those it seems like most people, once they get past a certain age, they grow out of that. But a lot of people that I know that are from Mexico still very much to this day believe that she is real and out there. So, what about you?
So the way I heard about it was basically almost the same thing, right? I ended up hearing that the story that was told to me was that she was basically jealous of her kids because her husband was putting a lot of attention on them. And the story I was told was that she ended up taking them to the river, both of them, and she ended up drowning both of them. But she immediately regretted it and started crying for her kids, right? um and she basically ended up drowning herself afterwards, and now she roams around. She's not really like a ghost or like somebody that's dead, but she's also not somebody that's alive. And basically, she's out looking for her lost kids, right? For her kids. So, since she's looking for her kids, she basically will end up grabbing wandering kids, right? That are either in the forest, by a lake, or just out, and she'll basically take him with her, and people say like she'll drown him and stuff like that. But yeah, and it's not just that too, but I've also heard that like she'll end up showing up to like unfaithful husbands as well, and I don't know if that ties into anything, but that's also another thing what I've heard. But yeah, mostly it's that like she ends up looking for her kids and is just trying to find them. So that's basically, what I've heard. Have you heard, what are the stories that you've heard?
I've heard a lot of, like I said, I know a lot of people that grew up and then spent parts of their young adult and adult lives in Mexico specifically, and a lot of them have stories recounting what they believed was, they heard her, the cries, her cries. I mean, they didn't go into, super detail about what the cries sound like, because I know specifically her cries are supposed to sound like very, like as distraught and distressed as you could possibly imagine. And I mean, I'd imagine if they're saying that they specifically heard her, that's what they heard. Um, growing up in that area, I'd imagine most people down there, because from what my understanding is, it's a very very common story down there in Mexico. It's like everyone that I know from Mexico heard about has told me they heard about it at a very young age, and it's something that everyone that they knew about it. So I'd imagine that it's not something that they'd say lightly, that that's what they heard. So but yeah, like I said, I've just I've never experienced an interaction of that kind with anything like that, but I've definitely heard. I've definitely met a lot of people that have had plenty of stories about it. How about yourself, bud?
Yeah, and like, let's clarify something, right? Because if we say that she's just crying, you can hear that just basically anywhere, right? And I'm sure this story was told for like you know specific purposes, right? Maybe it was told for like to keep children inside and make sure that they're not wandering around, right? And stuff like that. Kind of put a little bit of fear into it because her main target would end up being children, right? Because she's trying to find her sons, and it's never really been said how old the kids were, right? So that's another thing, it could be like, oh, they were teenagers or, something like around there, right? They could have been way younger, but it's never really been said how old they were. And another thing is when she's crying, she's not just like crying, right? It's like a desperation type of cry. And she's always like saying
Right.
also, mis hijos, right? Which translates, my children or my sons, right? Um, so it's like that type of cry. So like if you hear that, like
Right.
obviously it's gonna be some fear put into you, and yeah, it could be
Right.
somebody kind of hearing that, oh, there's some people over there, they're a little bit tipsy, let's mess with them, right? But
Right. Right.
if you grew up hearing this kind of story, you also don't want to mess around, right? Because like part of you, even whether you believe it or not, right? And you've grown up, hearing these type of stories, whether you believe it or not, there's still that, doubt, inside of you. And that will end up, if you end up hearing something like that, it will kind of scare you. And, the stories that I've heard have been like, some people claim to have seen her, right? And they say the way that they've seen her is that she's in all white. They have never ever been able to see her face or what it looks like, but she's always crying, and she's always crying for her kids. And you can't see her feet, but you can see that she's wearing a white dress. And from what I've also heard is that she was buried with a white dress, so I think she's wearing what she was buried with. But yeah, no, they say that they see her, she's always crying and looking, looking for people. And the people that have claimed to have seen her have also said that as soon as they seen her, they just take off. They run. They say that it's like
Right.
it's an instinct basically. Where
Fight or
they
flight kind of thing.
yeah, where they don't think about it, right? And they just take off, And like part of me wants to believe them, right? Part of me wants to be like, what if it is true? Like what if they're actually seeing it? And it's kind of like a weird thing with me, right? It's because some people, whoever has seen her or not, right? it's gonna be hard for people to believe you. You know, it's gonna be very, very hard. It's gonna be like, oh, you know, you're messing around. But there's gonna be some people that will believe you. You know, but yeah, no, it's always been interesting to me about that point, where it's like, if you always, you know, if you've seen something like that, and you tell somebody, it's, you know, it's gonna make you look a little crazy. You know, but
Right, right.
yeah, no, I've always heard about it in nights. I've always heard that people have, you know, heard, you know, those type of cries, whether it's, you know, in pueblos, whether it's near a forest or lake, right? And the other thing I've heard too is that her cries like echoes, so you never ever know like what direction she's coming from. So like
Yeah.
you don't know if you're running towards it, you don't know if you're running away from it because her cries basically echo. So that's another scary thing, you know? Like if you're hearing those
Yeah.
type of cries just echoing and you don't know where it's coming from, like that's a little creepy to me.
Right. No, definitely.
But you know, I was born in El Salvador, right? And I never actually ended up hearing of the Llorona until, you know, I came to, you know, the US. That was the first time I ever heard of her. But, you know, the Llorona is definitely like a Latin horror story, or, you know, tale, whatever you want to call it. Um, but the one I ended up hearing quite a bit, where I was born, where I lived over there in El Salvador, was the Headless Horseman, the Headless Rider, whatever you want to call it. People, you know, now I kind of look back at it and I definitely do see it as like, oh, you know, this was definitely a story to like scare kids, right? Because basically what people would say was that there would be a headless rider, right? There would be a headless person on a horse that is all black with red, like deep red eyes, and it never had a head. And you would always end up hearing the horse's footsteps, right? You would always hear the horse, you know, I don't know how to explain it, but you know, like when horses are running, right? Like
Galloping.
the, yeah,
Like a
galloping.
galloping
Yeah,
sound.
there we go. That's the word I was thinking of. Thank you. Like the galloping sound, you would end up hearing them, right? And you would hear them closer and closer. And if he saw you, he would just snatch you up. And people would say that basically he would end up taking you, you know, like, I guess hell in a way, right? Like that's the best way I can describe it. But he would just basically take you away and nobody would ever hear from you. And the scary part about that is that, you know, where I lived, there were a lot of farm animals around, right? There were cattle, there were sheep, there were a lot of horses, and people would still ride horses, right? So at night, you know, like as a little kid, you know, I was 4 or 5, you know, and you would just hear the galloping, you know, just in a distant, and then it would get close and then go away. And you know, to me, I was like, oh man, it's here, right? But like looking back at it now, you know, it could have just been some dude riding his horse, you know, at night. Like, I don't know, you know, I never physically saw him, but it was definitely, you know, enough to scare me. You know, it was enough to scare me. Just the sound of like the horse, you know, just the footsteps getting closer, and then it got loud,
Right.
and then
Yeah.
just move away. You know, like as a kid, that you're just like, oh, it's here, and you know, I would just cover
Right.
myself with, you know, like a sheet, you know, a blanket. I was like, oh no. But yeah,
Right.
no, looking back at it now, I'm pretty sure it was just, you know, to scare kids and stuff like that, because I think the Headless Horseman story is different, right? Or like the stuff he does is different. I'm not 100% sure.
I really, it wasn't anything that was ever directly told to me as a kid. I remember some point when I was younger, I saw some rendition of the story, the one with the Sleepy Hollow, which I think is the most famous rendition that of a story with the Headless Horseman. And I remember being scared of that, but I don't necessarily remember a oh, oh, so I guess it's a derivative of the Doulahan, which I don't know if you know anything about Doulahans.
No, I actually
Um,
don't know anything about Dulahans.
uh,
Like, is it
so uh, f-
is it any
it,
different?
so it is kind of, I guess, because I don't know about how you were told it, but like here with the Headless Horseman from like the Sleepy Hollow thing, there was always talk about like where its head is. Like it wasn't that the head was missing, it was that it was somewhere else, right? And in stories and with the Dullahan, it generally, from where I've seen it depicted, it's carrying its head, but it's like a demonic fae folk kind of creature that helps, basically a Grim Reaper type. I don't really know, like that's more of like the pop culture that I've seen of it now in like a lot of fantasy and stuff like that. I don't know the actual like origins of it. I mean, Wikipedia says that a lot of like it comes from a lot of European folklore. So, you know, it might be potentially different than the story you were being told. But the stories that I'm used to, I guess, is just a derivative of the Dullahan with the Sleepy Hollow and all that. But like I was saying, it was something I wasn't really ever explicitly told. It's just something I found out about because I think I just saw Sleepy Hollow when I was really, really young, and it freaked me out, and especially the whole aspect of it too, because it's kind of like a quiet town in the woods, and I mean, I grew up in a city, but my grandparents lived up in the mountains around the city, so I spent a lot of time up in the mountains. So definitely seeing that. I do remember being a little bit scared because we were literally in the middle of nowhere. There was no one around at that time. You know, there's more people living up in the mountains now, but when I was young, it was we were the only people on the mountain for probably 20 to 40 miles in either direction. Nobody ever came up there. So just that idea too of like running into something, some kind of being, entity, whatever, out in the middle of the woods definitely was something that scared me as a kid, and that story definitely didn't, help. It only added to it, that fear. But I mean, other than that, like I said, I never was directly told that story like you were, so
Okay, and yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure I was told just because people definitely do try to scare kids, especially over
oh
there.
yeah.
Um, try to find a way to like keep them inside, because so just a ton of things can go wrong over there. But that's a whole different topic. But
Yeah. Well, I
like
yeah, but I think a lot of these stories are just, meant to, keep kids out of areas that are safe. You look in the past, it was like the dark in the forest because, we didn't know what lurked in the forest. And even now you could argue like some of the or no, I'm sorry. Some of the like internet like horror-esque stories are, to keep kids out of places on the internet that, are not safe for them. I mean, you got like, red rooms and all that kind of stuff floating around, those kinds of stories. And while I'm sure there's certain validity to some of them, I think a lot of them are, kind of coming about to keep kids off of the seedier parts of the internet.
I definitely do agree with that, but I don't know. Part of me just wants to kind of believe, like there's a part of me that's just
Right.
like, what if it is real? What if
Oh, definitely.
there's something, and it's really fun to think about it. It's like you do definitely scare yourself, you definitely do, but I don't know. I won't say small. I want to say like a little bit of a bigger portion, because like I do have my own stories, right? Where like I felt something and like I just could never ever explain it. And
Right.
like I said, if this takes off, we'll definitely do talking about a little bit more other stories and stuff like that. I've kind of experienced, I don't want to say paranormal, but I can't really think of any other thing, right? But we'll get to that, a little later on in another, another episode of this. But yeah, there's a huge part of me that definitely does want to believe it, But there's another part where it's like, maybe your brain was, playing a trick on you. You just never know.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, right, right.
But yeah. Do you have anything else to say about like the Headless Horseman?
No, I can't really say that I do.
Okay, so the next one was the national parks, right? So this one I really don't have any experience or know anything about. So stage is all yours, buddy.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure if any of you spend any amount of time on the parts of the internet that are more about like the paranormal or even like conspiratorial, because this kind of goes into like certain conspiracy theories, but there's a lot of like really interesting and theories and things about the forest, obviously, because forest is creepy and dark and you know humans like don't intrinsically we don't like that because of the fact that there could be predators out there, um you know out there to get us. But specifically, there's a lot of stuff around the National Park Service. If you've ever heard of the Missing 411, which is a whole animal in and of itself, I'm sure you've heard about some of them, but just about like weird things, weird coincidences, weird instances of people going missing, specifically in our national parks. But yeah, there's a lot of people that believe that our National Park Service was actually created to protect, people from what's hiding in the woods. That there's some entities or beings or something just out in the wilderness that want to do harm or could cause some kind of irreparable damage to humans, and that the park services are there to protect us from it. There's lots of weird cases, like the missing 411, of weird disappearances with a lot of, questionable circumstances. And, if you look throughout, the whole of America and Native American folklore, there's a lot of consistencies of like, you know, ape-like creatures that showed intelligence, ape humanoid type creatures that showed high levels of intelligence wandering around in the woods. Um,
Um,
and even like what was that?
oh, sorry. I just, I kind of want to ask a couple questions here. And I kind of want to
Yeah.
throw, like maybe something out there, but, uh, before I ask my question, what if it's just like some really hairy dude just, wandering around? Has
Right,
anybody,
right.
ever thought of that? It was just some,
Well,
you know,
of course, but I mean, there's all kinds of evidence for that not being the case.
okay. But, my question was actually, you said that people believe that rangers were created to protect us from what's in the national parks, right? I want to know, like, how do they protect us? Like, what is it that they do specifically, or like,
Well, basically, what these
what do people
oh,
say they do?
just more of like contain whatever it is that's out there and keep it from getting into view of the general population.
Yeah, but like, how do
Whether
they?
it be,
Sorry, God.
I was just gonna say whether that be, just pure like detainment or, killing them.
Okay, so it would be something that's killable then, right? Like they're not writing like like circles and like they can't cross that barrier or whatever. Like
No,
it's
no,
nothing like
no.
that.
It's. I mean, while there is some like, I guess you could say mythical aspect to it, a lot of it, I think, a lot of people believe it's like some distant offshoot ancestor of humans that is a descendant of primates, but is bipedal and has opposable thumbs, but maybe doesn't have the same like brain capacity that humans do, so it's, you know, a little bit more primitive in that sense. I mean, obviously too, there are the like supernatural things. Like I think we were talking earlier where I briefly touched about the whole stairs in the wood kind of thing. That was that big thing on Reddit where everybody thought it was just like, you know, a creepy pasta, but then there's like some validity to it. But you know, everyone's kind of like it probably is a creepy pasta, but there's definitely some more valid points to it than a lot of others.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
mean, there are definitely people that believe in supernatural things being out there, but for the most part, it's something like a Bigfoot or a, you know, Jersey, oh God, a Tennessee Wild Man, or you know, things like that.
Okay. Would like like um like the Enderman be one of those or no?
The what?
Enderman? Or
Like,
wait, I'm sorry, not Enderman.
yeah,
It's Minecraft, my bad.
I was like, why are
Uh,
we talking about Minecraft?
no, it's Slenderman. There we go.
No, because Slenderman kind of, I'm pretty sure it's like, from what I remember when I looked into it, when like there was the big Slenderman craze, that really ended up being like an internet thing, kind of like the Rake, where the internet just kind of came. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. This is just me trying to remember from God. That was probably like 10 years ago when that blew up now, but it just kind of like it was a boogeyman kind of story. It was like,
Okay.
oh, be good kids, or the Slenderman's gonna come get you, kind of thing.
Okay. I'm not gonna
Where
lie
it
to you.
wasn't necessarily.
I'm not gonna lie to you, bro. Like that whole entire thing, like really, really did mess me up, right? Like even now, right? Like I'm kind of like scared to like like say the name or stuff like that. Like it just really, really messed me up, and yeah, like it was just like a whole entire thing. Like even now, I'm kind of like, oh. But sorry, what were you saying about it before? Like it was a boogeyman.
Yeah, just like a boogeyman of, you know, be good kids, or the Slenderman's gonna come get you.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So it's more of like than Bigfoot, right? For the national
Right,
parks
because
and
yeah, I mean, but like Bigfoot and like the Tennessee Wild Man and those kinds of, and like things that I've never really seen them described as, you know, necessarily like aggressive and bloodthirsty in the same way that you'd call it like Slenderman, you know?
hmm. So what's I've never heard of the Tennessee uh Wildman. Is that what you said? Tennessee Wildman?
Yeah,
What?
yeah, very similar to like Bigfoot. I don't think it's usually described as tall as Bigfoot. I think it's more like my height, where it's like high 6 foot to 7 foot. Just but covered in hair. And if I remember correctly, they're the ones that have red eyes, and so a lot of times people would say like, you know when they're nearby because you'll just see red eyes from the tree lines, you know, and like for the most part, if I'm not necessarily known to be particularly aggressive, because I want to say they're also from folklore, they were described as like helping lost children find their way homes and things like that. Whereas like as long as you didn't mess with them and like their habitat and all that, they didn't really have a problem with you, but they'd also like always be watching you, kind of thing.
Mm.
So there's that aspect of it, but there's a lot of similar stories, especially from like north, or I'm sorry, southeastern part of the US. Just like how all up, I think from here to, you know, all down the west coast of the North America. I don't know about maybe into like Mexico, but definitely Canada and the US. There's lots of similar stories about, you know, a Sasquatch like creatures. Um, so, you know, just hairy humanoid like things being out in the woods, and then even, I mean, dude, there's so many stories about like Appalachia, just that whole region of in terms of like cryptids and just weird things out there too, because there's a lot of people that believe too that like out there, you know, they have those complex cave systems. A lot of people believe there's like mole people that are offshoots they're humans that just went underground, you know, generations upon generations ago, and adapted to living, underground and basically no lights situations, and that they don't really have eyes anymore. They rely on their other senses. But I think those are usually described as being more aggressive towards people and very territorial than like a lot of the other like I guess woodland inhabitants. I guess you
Okay.
would say.
Okay, but I mean
But I mean also
like Bigfoot, right? Like some people say like he might be real, right? Because of the I believe it was the bones that they ended up finding off of China, right? The God, what's the name? It was literally a it was literally in the Book of the Jungle. I forget his name, bro. But you know what I'm talking about, right? The big ape.
the Yetis.
No, the big ape. It was in the Book of the Jungle. I forget his name. It was like
The,
something like,
you mean Jungle Book?
yeah, the Jungle Book.
Are you talking about Baloo?
Yeah, well, what's the something Sopophagus or yeah,
Australopithecus?
Australopithecus? Because they ended up
That
finding
that
that, and like people like try to say that oh maybe it's still around, even though people have said that it's gone extinct, but they say there's been plenty of animals that we've thought were extinct and like kind of has come back.
well, I mean, it's the same thing with like Neanderthals and a lot of those other like our distant relatives of the past. A lot of people think that it's possible that they're still alive and out there, and that's where a lot because the woods too, it's like people talk about like space being the final frontier, but I don't think a lot of people realize. Everybody knows the sea. We still haven't explored a lot of the sea, which, oh god, you could make 1,001 videos about
Oh
the
yeah,
kind of stuff that could be hiding in the sea.
seriously.
um
Sorry. Now that you've opened up this door a little bit, I kind of want to just creep in just a little bit, right? There was actually a pretty interesting like theory or I don't know, like story or whatever you want to say, like whatever you want to call this, right? It's up to you. But some people say that, I think they said something about like NASA, right? Said something about NASA like exploring the oceans
oh god,
for a
I think I know what
while
you're talking
and
about.
then
Yeah.
they just suddenly stopped and try to
Yeah.
explore space, and people believe that they ended up finding something in the ocean and they're just trying to get the fuck up out of here. Anyway,
Yeah, no.
I just want to mention that, because you opened that door. I want to keep creeped in a little bit, but that could definitely
No,
be something we talk about. I would love
I
that.
can even briefly expand on that because what that and then the reason you might be seeing it now is I know the guy that supposedly was the head of that research recently like went out in public and said like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I found something, and they didn't like it, so they kind of just threw the whole project out. And no, because originally I think when they originally were established, it was definitely for space. Like it was never not about space. It was just that I believe they also included like they were gonna map out everything under the sea. And the story goes that they found something, and they kind of stopped after that. And I'd also heard another story that during the Cold War, the we were testing thermonuclear weapons out at sea, and I don't know if you guys know what thermonuclear weapons are, but basically they're current, like I guess you'd want to call it latest and greatest in nuclear weaponry, and they use a fission reaction to trigger a fusion reaction, and fusion is what stars do. So supposedly this fusion reaction was as bright as a small sun, and supposedly it awakened something in the ocean, and multiple navies sent fleet ships out to combat it alongside us, multiple of our allies, and it sank like two ships. And supposedly a lot of those sailors that lost their lives, there's claims that these families of these lost sailors to this day don't know what happened to their family members, because of, this incident. Nobody wanted it to get out that we awakened something at the bottom of the floor, so ocean floor supposedly. And even now with like all the stuff going on regarding aliens, there's a lot of people that are claiming that we have more evidence that UFOs come out of, the ocean than they do the sky. And I'm sure if you spend enough time online or just in the space, I guess, or community, you'll heard that we know more about space than we do our own oceans, and it's just somehow space is more hospitable than the bottom of the oceans on our planet. So, but yeah, I mean, any of and I think like while there's like definitely like cosmic horror of that nature, I think for a lot of people, these stories of, the ocean and our forests like feel much more real because it's like, yeah, you can look up at the sky and you can get a feeling of the vast emptiness that way. But I don't think it necessarily gives you like, at least for me, and I don't know about you or anyone else listening, give me like an existential dread in the same way that maybe just staring out at the empty ocean or staring into a dark forest does.
For me, it's more of the ocean than the dark forest, right? Like,
Right.
if I had to pick one, right? Either go by myself in a dark forest or go by myself inside the ocean. I would probably pick the dark forest just because, like, to me, it's really insane to, I don't know, like, the ocean just terrifies me, right? Terrifies me. Like, I'll go in it, and stuff like that just to have fun. But it's crazy that, you can't see anything below your neck, And I don't think you would, like, I believe, like, I believe Bill Burr said this, like, you wouldn't go in, like, the Amazon rainforest, just with something that blocks the rest of your body and all you can see is up to your neck. And it kind of like puts it in perspective on how like dangerous it can be. And dude, the ocean just terrifies me. But if we definitely do talk about this, bro, there's one thing I would love to talk about. And it's been in like, history. It's definitely been like, told in many different ways, and that would be the Kraken, bro. Like, I think that would be like great to talk about, and I would, yeah, I would definitely love to talk about that in another episode.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've definitely got a lot to say about that too. So,
But yeah, let's get back on topic. Do you have anything else to say about the national rainforest, or I'm sorry, national forest?
the forest. No, just there's I mean, again, like I said during the, Headless Horseman part, I spent a lot of time uh up in the middle of nowhere as a kid, and it wasn't like super forested. Like we had trees and in that part where my grandparents were at that time, but they weren't anything crazy. Like they're maybe like 15, 20 feet tall, so nothing huge. Like we weren't in a super like too high up in the mountains for like the big redwoods and all that you see out in California, but it's still like even those little trees, like when it gets dark out, and even knowing that, oh, there's like something 20 feet in or 30 feet in, like it's just a small little, thicket. It's still like just looking into that tree line late at night it can be terrifying. and
Oh,
and two, it's like when the dead quiet that you get out there where you can hear every little thing. You can hear something like walking around crunching on uh on like dead leaves and breaking sticks and things like that. And it was something that I definitely was I would get scared as a kid a lot. And then I don't know if it was ever explicitly told to me, but then I kind of just realized like, oh, just make yourself seem bigger in those situations if you think there's an animal out there watching you, and you'll probably scare it off. And then like I growing up now, I've heard like people from like the bayous and the swamps down and in the Everglades talk about like, just be the loudest thing out there and you'll be fine.
I think it depends on the animal because I think it depends on the animal 100%. Because if it's a grizzly and like,
Okay, but yeah, we don't
you're
have
getting like,
grizzlies in
you're
California.
making yourself big. No, but I'm just saying, like just in general, I think it depends on the animal. If you try to make yourself bigger and loud, like if it's its territory, it doesn't matter how big you make yourself. That thing's charging at you, and, and the only thing you can do
So
is
yeah,
really
we don't
pray that
have
that's all you
we,
can do.
we don't have grizzlies out here.
No, yeah, but I'm just saying, like it just depends on the animal, like a puma. Yeah, you can scare it off unless it's really hungry.
Oh,
Then
because my grandma still lives up there, and she sees them very frequently now. But up until like 10 years ago, and she'd been living up there for 40 years at that point, she had never seen one, and now she sees them relatively frequently.
yeah,
So,
I'm sure it's because
uh,
the animals that are out there, they can grab them really quick, and I'm sure they've kind of gotten used to like an easy meal like that. Like I said,
oh,
if they're hungry, like they're you got a 50-50.
yeah, no, I'm pretty sure mountain lions are skittish as if you're bigger than them, because like that's the thing with the like grizzlies specifically is they're the biggest things out there, and they know that they're the biggest thing out there, so they don't try to be stealthy. They don't try to put you down quick like a cat does, because most cats, big cats, are still substantially smaller than their prey, so they try to incapacitate it as quickly as possible. Whereas like a grizzly's still like 2 times the size of what it's eating, so it
Yeah,
really doesn't have to try much. That's
yeah,
what makes grizzlies truly terrifying, and why you can't just why the whole make yourself bigger thing.
doesn't work. Okay, yeah, it doesn't work, and I mean, yeah, dude, like grizzlies will end up eating something alive. It's still alive, and they'll just end
Right.
up continuously
Oh,
like
dude.
tearing the limb by limb. It's really sad to see, but yeah, cats
No,
just go
dude.
for the throat. They just go for the throat. But like I said, if it hasn't eaten, it will end up taking its chances. If it hasn't eaten and it's really hungry,
Oh,
it'll take its chances.
that's anything. That's
Yeah, yeah,
anything.
it's
But I
anything.
mean, I mean, you're not gonna know if it's stalking you in the tree line.
Yeah, but yeah, no, bro. Like they're yeah, it's when it comes to animals, a whole different subject though. Yeah, no, like I'm not saying like looking down in the like dark forest or anything like that is scary, but I feel like I would rather take my chances at that than swim out in the ocean. Like especially like if something just drops you in the middle of the ocean. No, fuck that. I'm out. Which one would you pick if you had to go down a dark forest by yourself, or they dropped you in the middle of the ocean? Which one do you pick?
I mean, so I definitely would still pick the forest, but I like being in the forest when it's dark out. So like I like the vibes of being out in the middle of nowhere and being in the woods. So like I wouldn't really even necessarily. I honestly, I'd say I feel safer out there than I do in like a city. Like that's just spending so much time out in the wilderness growing up was, I just kind of grew to love it, and I find it very relaxing to just be out of the hustle and bustle. But I think because you've heard of like the call of the void, right? Like that interest in going into the unknown,
No,
like that. You've never heard of that?
no.
So like the people talk about like the call of the void, like where you look into like emptiness, whether it's a dark woods or the ocean or deep space, and it like calls to you, like it's calling to you. You need to go there and see what's there.
Okay.
And some people have that, and I feel like I have that because I like is I definitely like I'm not gonna try and pretend like I wouldn't be terrified like in the deep ocean, but at the same time I'd kind of be like, well, I want to know what's down there. Like I want to see what's down there.
Yeah, but you can't really like unless you hop on a submarine that you know
Right.
you can't really see it. No, but dude, that would terrify me. That dude. Okay, I'm not gonna lie to you. Like that would terrify me. Even in a video game, right? Like last time I did it was in GTA 5,
So
where you end up popping in a submarine and you kind of go in the ocean, and there's nothing up there, right? Like there's unless you mod
yeah.
it, there's literally nothing there. But on how high my anxiety got being like down there in like the deep ocean with just this like yellow submarine thing, it was just it was I can't even explain it, bro. Like I literally had to turn the game off. Like it got that bad where I had to turn the game off. That's how bad my anxiety got. So I can't imagine what I would feel if I was actually in like one of those going downwards and all I can see it's just the sunlight, just like escaping and just everything getting really, really dark and you can't see like 2 feet in front of you. And no, that's too much. No, pass.
So you're probably not gonna like me for bringing this up, but there's two games I think you should play this month as part of your scary games. I mean, one of them like isn't necessarily a horror game, but for a lot of people it is. But I'm sure you've heard of it, Subnautica.
Yeah, I think I've heard of it. I think I've seen a couple of
Yeah,
gameplays of it.
yeah. But if you want like an actual like deep sea horror game, I've like even outside of like if you're afraid of the sea or not, it's just supposed to be a really good horror game. It's called Iron Lung.
Never heard of it.
Yeah, so like it I mean, I don't want to spoil like I don't know like the story per se, but I know like the gameplay of it and everything, but it revolves around being in a sub in a deep ocean. So,
Okay. No. Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it. But yeah, no, bro. Like yeah. Like I said, I just that's one of my biggest fears. Like, okay, you know me, right? You know I'm absolutely terrified of heights. I would rather skydive than go in a submarine going downwards like that. Like, that's how much terrified I am to it. And you know how freaking terrified I get of heights too. So that should give you an idea on like how different they are for me.
yeah, no. I want to say I remember that we've talked about this before that you just don't like the ocean.
Yeah. It's not that I don't like it. Like it fascinates me. I
Well,
love learning about animals in the ocean.
that part, that's a part we're talking about.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, but yeah, no, like the ocean fascinates me. I love like I love learning about it, but fuck doing like any of that type of diving stuff, even scuba diving. Like I want to do it, but I'm also kind of scared of doing it. But I might do it if I ever do go to Hawaii. Like if I do find like a good place to do it, I would probably do it, but not the submarine thing, bro. Not the submarine thing. Or even like I want to be a marine biologist, right? You know how they have like those camera things, right? Even
Yeah,
looking inside that, bro, like it just puts my anxiety in like such a weird place that it just makes me so uncomfortable.
well, even like, to further that like kind of thing, you like find those videos from those, URVs or I forget what they're called, but where they drop them to like the Marianas Trench or those other deep parts, and it's just so dark down there. Like obviously there's a light for the camera, but it's like you never know what's gonna come out of that void, right?
Yeah, and it
Like
always
it's
scares
still
me
like
too.
oh
I look at it, I'm like, oh my god, what was that? Oh, it was just a shrimp. Oh, no, it was just a crab.
well everything down there too is massive. The fucking shrimp down there I think are like over a foot long
Yeah,
too. At
yeah.
least at like the bottom of the Marianas Trench.
It depends where you look, I think, but again, I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on that.
No,
But
deep sea gigantism is a pretty consistent thing at extreme depths.
well, I know that with especially with squids, like people have pulled in
But
like
what
giant squids,
everything.
but um, well, isn't like the football? I forget football fish. I think that's what it's called. The
Oh,
angler,
well,
the angler fish.
the
Is that what it's called?
angler, like in the grand scheme of everything, I don't think they're that deep. They occupy that deep of an area. Let me see here. Because like the Marianas Trench is super, super, super deep.
Damn, bro. Imagine if shrimps are a foot long and then what
One
ends up eating
thousand
that?
four hundred and 1,474 meters deep. So what's Marianas Trench depth? It's 2,550
Damn.
kilometers. Wait, no, not kilometers. No way. Oh, in length. No way it's that deep. Um, deepest way. What's the deepest part? Come on. Why doesn't nobody say that's the only thing people care about? And you're telling me how what the width is. Uh, it's 10,984 meters deep. So it's 10 times the depth
Yeah. Okay.
that the
Yeah.
anglerfish lives at. So I mean, from what I understand with the ocean specifically, they classify it by like three different like layers or multiple layers depending on how much sunlight gets through. But you don't need to get that deep in the grand scheme of like the ocean to not really get sunlight through anymore, which is why
Yeah.
you have like the anglerfish and those kinds of fish.
Yeah. No, and it's also cool to know, like, I don't know if you've seen those videos where, like,
Yeah.
where people hold the color scheme and then just start diving as deep as they possibly can, and then you just kind of
Yeah.
see the colors kind of like,
Disappear.
combine.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that, I think that's pretty cool. And, or when you end up getting a fish and then, you bring it up and it's just a
It's a
completely different
different
color.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always thought that was cool. But yeah, I guess we ended up talking about the ocean, either way.
Yeah.
But no, one thing I want to say though, when you were talking about being in the forest, right? It's 100% peaceful. Like it's really really peaceful, and I'm not going to say I like it being out there alone, right? Cuz I'm not going to lie to you, my mind plays tricks on me, bro. Like my mind plays like tricks on me, like I scare myself, it can be absolutely nothing out there, but like I scare myself. So
Right.
for me, it would still be terrifying. I'd be like, "Oh shit, what was that?" I would literally be scaring myself, even though if there wouldn't be anything out there, I would be scaring myself.
Yeah, I mean, the human mind just does that.
Yeah, but at the same time, like I don't know. There's some times, right? I don't want to say like it's just like sometimes I do definitely do feel like like some weird type of like energy, right? Whether it's like good or bad, I just feel like there's something there. And the weirdest part is when somebody fucking confirms it, and that's literally when I'm like, okay, like, like, like that's where it fucking scares me. Because I'm like,
Right.
I thought like, for me, right, whenever I feel that, like the way I can brush it off is, oh, it's just in my head, right? But then
Right.
if somebody literally confirms it, right? Like I don't say anything. They're like, I feel something there. Like I feel like something was watching us, and they tell me exactly what I'm feeling. That's where I'm like, bro, that's when I grab my bags and I go. But yeah, no, like I literally have had that happen to me multiple times, and it kind of does creep
I
me
mean,
out.
it's usually just an animal. I mean,
Well, I'm not talking about just like that, right? Like I'm not talking about like in the forest or anything like that. Like I'm talking
oh,
about like
right. Yeah. Well, I
like
mean,
actual.
I'm pretty sure it's a confirmed like scientific fact that humans can like literally sense when they're being stared at.
Yeah, no, no, no. I know that, but like it's a weird thing to explain. Like it's like an energy that you kind of feel. And like
Yeah.
it's weird to say it, I know, right? And it makes me sound crazy, but like the weird part is when people have confirmed it to me, like they've told me
Yeah.
exactly the
Yeah.
same thing, right?
Yeah. No.
And
No. No. That's it. Yeah.
I wanted like there's a story I'm gonna tell, right? When I was younger, right? We used to end up living in this house, right? And my parents ended up renting one of the rooms to somebody, right? It was this lady. And, after a while, like the lady just, didn't pay rent, right? So they had to kick her out. But like as soon as that lady moved in, like weird shit started happening. Like
Right.
it was just like this weird energy that like you would feel, like you would just feel it. And it definitely did cause like a lot of problems, right? But when the lady got kicked out, they kind of went into the room to clean up, and they ended up sawing in red, right? They didn't know what it was, but it was in red. It was I believe it's called a pentagram, right?
That's well, generally speaking, in that kind of sense, it probably was an inverted pentagram.
Yeah. So it was that drawn, and on like the wall, right?
Right.
And the weird part is, dude, that like it was that was where I would see shit the most, right? Like it would creep me out, and like I would always tell myself it's just in my head, it's just my head, right? But I would like see shadows like standing like, at my doorway. There was one that
Yeah.
like to this day, bro, I still remember how I felt, how I saw it and everything, right? But I was just trying to go to sleep, and I wake up and I see like a shadow crawl to the corner of the room, right? And I look at it, and it's staring at me, and we're literally just staring at each other. And then it just jumps towards me, right? Like it literally jumps from the corner of the room, right? On the opposite corner of the room
Right.
where the door was. It just jumped, and I literally felt like just a wind, bro. The windows were closed. Okay, all the windows were closed. The only thing was the door. There was no fan or anything, bro. And I felt the wind just literally go through me. I was
Right.
so fucking terrified. I ran out the room, and I just stood in the hallway. I turned on all the lights, and I just stood in the hallway, bro. Like just looking down the hallway, trying to process what happened. And the room that was next to mine, right, was my uncle's. And he like comes out, and he's like, "What are you doing?" Because I literally turned on all the lights, and like I didn't want to tell him because I was still processing what was like going through my mind, right?
Right.
And he's like, "What are you doing? Like, go to bed, right?" And like I can't like tell him, right? But all I do is I just shake my head. But like that was one of the creepiest things that have ever happened to me. It wasn't that long after that we ended up moving into the house, and like after that I never ended up seeing another things, but I have like kind of like felt like some weird like energy type thing. And it's, again, I always tell myself that it's in my head unless somebody tells me otherwise, unless somebody literally tells me exactly what I feel. And then I'm like,
Right.
fuck. Because you know how I am with fucking scary stuff, bro. I was like, I just don't want to fucking. No, I was like, no. But yeah, no. There's been multiple incidents where like I felt something, then somebody like clarifies it, and recently I started seeing like people saying that like items can potentially hold memories. Have you
Yeah.
heard of that?
Oh, dude, like, so there's a lot of theories about just in general. I mean, because that kind of goes into like with the water memory theory too, hydrogen memory theory, just in general, like, a lot of theories about like just imprints of energy can be left in items. That's why a lot of people will tell you like don't buy antique furniture. Like you don't know what you're bringing into your house,
Yeah,
like what kind of energy is going to come with it.
yeah. But I guess that's a different subject. We can definitely talk about a later date. But
Oh yeah, I could talk about that for hours.
let's
So
let's let's make that the next episode. We'll talk about the next episode because dude, there's a lot of like haunted stuff that we can talk about, like haunted items that we can talk about too. And
well,
yeah,
I even just my own thoughts, experiences, 'cause I've had quite. I've touched on them briefly in speeches, but I've had plenty of what you'd call supernatural experiences, and I also have a lot of. I've spent a lot of time thinking about them from a more what I would consider scientific perspective and things like that, and just like the overall like universal implications that I feel that kind of stuff has.
yeah, no, we'll definitely we'll make this the next episode. All right, we'll do this on the next
Uh,
episode. But I'm gonna go ahead and cut it here short because it's been an hour that we've been talking. And again, I don't know. We still got to figure out how long we want to make these. Like, if we want to make them really short, if we want to make them, an hour long. Definitely let us know, down in the comments below if you want it to be, like kind of like a lengthy one, or if shorter is better. If you made it all the way through the end on all our rambles, because we started off on topic and then we just kind of went all over the place, but that's kind of how we do everything, honestly.
Right.
We start talking about one thing and then it leads to another, which is, it's fun because it keeps it, it keeps the flow going. So I can't complain on
Yeah,
that.
no. I personally, it's kind of funny. So I'm not really a podcast guy, but um recently I found out I think I always forget his first name. I think his first name's Chris. His last name's Garza. He's he's a guitarist for Suicide Silence, and he has a podcast. And I've been watching it because it's like the only place you can. Certain bands, it's like the only place that they have done interviews. So like just getting that to see some of the bands I like that I don't normally get to see interviews with is fun. But he recently did an interview with Phil, and I forget which other member, but another Phil and another member of Whitechapel, and they came up in the same scene and like at the same time, so they're friends. So like I really felt like that, like the way that podcast flowed, I liked more than any of the others because it was kind of like this where it really wasn't like questions that dictated the topics. They just kind of flowed from topic to topic because they were just bullshitting like friends. And I feel like that, like, at least for me, that's a much more enjoyable, like, listening experience.
Yeah, I mean,
So,
it's definitely different for everybody, but I gotta say, like,
right.
I'll be honest, more than likely, are like these, episodes, mini podcasts, whatever you want to call it, will more than likely be like that because you know how we are. We've tried this multiple times with different ones, and we've tried to stay on topic, but we just go all over the place. And
We've tried writing scripts and like it never goes
yeah, it
well.
just goes all over the place. It, like, I won't. We would say we'll end up talking about this, but trust me, we'll end up being all over the place. We'll talk about different type of stuff, and yeah, no, the next one we'll end up talking about haunted items, I guess, and maybe some other stuff. But I don't know if this is gonna be once a week. I don't know if this is gonna be twice a week. I can't tell you. I have to figure out the schedule. But for right now, I'll say once a week. If I can definitely post twice a week on this one, we'll definitely do it twice a week. But for right now, once a week. The last thing I want to leave you, because we're talking a little bit about like mythical things, things like that. But what I want to leave you with is a question, okay? So down in the comments below, let me know. So you have two options, okay? Would you rather experience something, whether it's paranormal, whether it's seeing, like a mythical creature like the Llorona, the Headless Rider, or maybe Bigfoot, seeing Nessie, right? Or you can even throw aliens in there, right? Would you rather see this and like experience it, right? Or something paranormal and know that it exists, but anytime you try to tell somebody that story, right? You basically just sound crazy to them. They don't believe you, right? Or would you rather just not experience that at all and just not, just never experience anything like that? Let me know which one you'd rather do. But which one would you pick?
I would definitely say aliens. Like, I don't care if I'm the only one that knows they're real. I just want to know whether or not I
Yeah.
want that. Well, I'm pretty sure they're real. I just want that, confirmation.
Yeah, it's a,
And to get to understand like what exactly they, that they look like, and all that. So
yeah, so you'd end up picking the experience, right? Over
right,
not knowing. And yeah, honestly,
yeah.
I think I would too. And if it's something paranormal, I would be terrified for the rest of my life. But yeah, no, I'd rather definitely know the experience and then sound like I'm crazy, right? To somebody to tell it than just like not knowing, right? So anyways, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much if you made it all the way to the end. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and hope you have a good rest of your day or whenever you're watching this. And we'll end up seeing you on the next one.
Goodbye.